All right, welcome back, folks. A little after 3 o'clock. We are picking up work on H 103, an act relating to prohibited practices for services involving veterans benefits. We spoke to this a lot yesterday, and there was some question looking for some input feedback from the Attorney General's office. So we have with us the Policy Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs, Mr. Delos. How are you?
I'm well, Chair. Thank you. So yes, for the record, Todd Delos, AAG at the Vermont Attorney General's office. I'm happy to just start with the questions that the committee has, if that's the easiest way to go about it. I think our role is really in that enforcement element. And I know this is a committee that doesn't maybe have as much familiarity with our consumer protection work. So happy to give a high overview or just jump in and respond to questions.
Let's do a high overview, just for like your thoughts with how it's, how the words on the page read to your eyes and your office's eyes.
Absolutely. So the language in on page 5, which would be both in, I think it's what title initially, we're in title 20. The new section 1756 is just a simple cross-reference to the Consumer Protection Act, which is 9 VSA 2453. The act is actually all of chapter 63 within Title IX, but that reference is what identifies deceptive acts and practices in commerce, which is sort of the crux of consumer protection law. So when we are defending consumers, and it's important that we defend consumers, not consumers. Right. When the Attorney General acts, we are acting on behalf of the state, and therefore we're looking at consumers as understood broadly, not individuals. We don't bring cases on behalf of individuals. So when there's a deceptive act or practice of commerce, that provides us the opportunity to go to that business and potentially seek penalties, stop the practices. Sometimes there's restitution available for consumers. Importantly, and this is listed in that section B of 1756, consumers also have their own ability to vindicate their own rights here. And I think we view that as incredibly important. Our work is on behalf of the state. And as you're well aware, our work is taxpayer funded. It's important when individuals' rights are involved in matters like this, when it's about seeking benefits or otherwise, that they have the ability to seek their own protections and damages. That's what the Consumer Protection Act does broadly. So, that all makes sense to us. I'm happy to kind of reflect on the bill as a whole, but most of those are policy questions that you all are already struggling with, and we don't have a strong policy position on the bill.
Okay. But it just falls into the general provisions governing.
It allows us to do investigations. It allows us to seek, as I said, actual damages. It allows us to seek penalties of $10,000 up to $10,000 per violation. It allows us, a whole host of tools that enable us to work. Whether it's the same law under which we're suing Meta, for example, Instagram, or that we may go after, a smaller business that has some kind of pattern and practice that's violation of consumer principles, that's unfair in another way, is deceptive in another way. I'm just trying to think of other examples where we may have gone after like something else that would be familiar to you all that sits clearly in consumer protection. The ones that are in my head are tobacco related or otherwise. Yeah. But there's a lot of, if you look in chapter 63 or around chapter 63, you'll see there are a lot of areas where the Consumer Protection Act is pulled into or deceptive acts are clarified through bills like this.
Okay. Are you aware of like any complaints within this like scope of concern?
Not to my, it is not on sort of the top 10 list of complaints we get. But I'm aware, through advocates, I'm aware of this, what the push is here. I mean, ensuring that veterans get the benefits that they're afforded. I will say from an enforcement perspective, just one reflection is that, the kind of carve out language that's in here, which just caught my eye because I haven't seen many persons sort of a carve out from what is a person. It'll be an interesting enforcement environment, right?
Talking about C?
I'm looking, sorry, I should orient.
No worries.
I'm looking at page 1,
Oh, no, let's see.
line 2021 on page 2, just carving out a certain category. And I didn't dig in too deep on, that's a policy question that the committee is no doubt well aware of. I would just say from an enforcement perspective, we look at it and it would be interesting, right? We could get a complaint. Somebody's seeking something that's prohibited under the act. Maybe they're using a login inappropriately. Maybe they're guaranteeing specific benefits. We investigate because we've gotten multiple complaints about one entity. And then we have to figure out, does the entity fit under this exemption from the law? And there may be great policy reasons for that to be the case. We don't have a position on it.
Brevstone.
How would the Attorney General's office enforce this against a multi-state company operating online? Would it be complaint driven?
Yes.
Would be.
Well, I will say it would be complaint driven, and if there are other states that have similar protections, some of our cases arise in a multi-state context where there's an actor who may be operating across jurisdictions. Every jurisdiction has a Consumer Protection Act. Some may have this kind of level of specificity, and that would enable a multi-state coalition to go forward, which can be a very powerful tool.
Any other questions for the AG's office? Yes, Brevstone.
Do you know would the Attorney General support language limiting compensated services exclusively to VA accredited representatives? That was brought up yesterday, the question of accreditation.
I'm a very visual person, so I'm trying to put that language in here. Where would it?
It would have to be something that I think would be added to, because it's not specific about if the entities require accreditation or not.
So this would be sort of, I mean, generally speaking, I don't think we're going to have a position on that specifically, but I would say generally speaking, accreditation through a verified process is a good consumer protection measure because it's some kind of external licensure or at least approval. The question is just what's the accrediting entity, how rigorous are the standards, and how closely patrolled are they?
Brevstone.
Sorry.
No,
I have like 10 questions.
keep going.
Okay, because I think it's interesting. So in states that have passed similar laws, we heard about some yesterday, Tennessee being one of them that this was modeled after, recently passed. Have we seen litigation or unintended consequences that Vermont should be aware of if you were taking a cursory look at this?
I did not in anticipation, but I am happy to look at Tennessee and legal action. I don't know if Ledge Council had a chance to look at that, but see if Sophie has.
Anything else? Or
Any more questions?
I mean, yes, but I think maybe I'll hold them for legislative council. So you're, yeah. Policy related questions.
Okay.
Lunch council.
So if that's a wrap for the AG's office, we can invite council up because it's like you have some.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Questions, and I'm not sure it's for Ledge Council. I know it wasn't for the AG's office. I'm wondering how we ended up in a place where we changed the original language from the bill, because I feel like the original bill was banning this altogether. And now we've ended up at a different place. But it looks like there are other states around here, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Maine, have all banned this kind of activity. So I'm wondering how we got from what seems to be, and there are others, I think it's like Illinois and Iowa and stuff also, and some others. So I'm wondering how we got to the place from banning to not doing that and placing just like some other restrictions on it.
I think and I'll let Morgan speak to this maybe in a little depth, but my understanding is that there is a lot of entities out there that are behaving in a predatory fashion, and then some of the other ones were deemed to be navigators that were a resource to people trying to figure these things out. And so that was sort of the shift in the perspective, was to try and create language that could keep bad actors out of the pool, but allow resources when things like the SRO, again, no, VSO.
VSO.
Veteran Services, or, yeah, when they sort of can no longer facilitate anything for the veteran or spouse who's seeking the benefit.
Or saturation.
Saturation,
Yeah.
So am I answering that cleanly? Anything to add?
No, a big piece of a big component of it, and then talked it with Mr. Burke, is the saturation component. And of, it's an option, but putting guardrails on the options of who can do it. Keeping out, because if you like on Facebook, it's an algorithm, obviously, that must hit
Yeah.
veterans, because I see them, I don't want to say all the time, but periodically you'll see some guy pop up in a t-shirt going, hey, veterans, I can help you get XYZ. We're trying to get those people out of the mix because they're not good actors, if you will. I mean, you can't say that writ large, but I'd say for the most part, a lot of those are pretty good chance they're.
Potential's there.
Yeah, the potential, the great potential is there for them to be predatory, not. And get people into large monetary in the negative, get
Yeah.
gouged for a ton of money because you signed a contract. Now, how would that uphold? Could they go to corporate and, you take a guy or a gal that's, maybe not that well to do, and it's gonna go, I can't fight this, and I owe 10 grand. I guess I'm gonna take out a personal loan and go pay these guys 10 grand. And that's just an example of what we're trying to get rid of out of the market. It's like a lot of things, like, there's a lot of algorithms, as anybody that's on Facebook, of various things you could get pinged with. And I know, like I've said, I've been hit with that one multiple times, but you can just tell, I mean, like, at least I believe I can tell you that most of these people are shysters. They're just out to see what they can do, which is sad.
I know,
But it's out there.
it makes me worried for vulnerable people.
Sure. I
So,
mean, you got somebody that's, paycheck to, or maybe not even paycheck to paycheck, and they go out and go, well, I'm looking, this is my last lifeline, and they try it and then either fail or they've signed them up, in the fine print for some ungodly sum of money. That's what we're trying to eliminate. I don't know. If anybody feels the need to.
I don't want to just keep bringing up my own situation, but after Danny died, I got solicitations like, I don't even know where they got her name from. It's like, how did they know? But I got postcards, I got these very formal looking letter envelopes, and you open it up and it's like, we can help you, we'll take 5% of what we recover for you. And I mean, and I was, young enough and smart enough to know that there were service officers available. But an elderly lady in 88 or 75, whatever, that they just don't know, and they're not computer knowledgeable or whatever, would probably sign that dotted line and say, sure, help me figure out what my husband was eligible for.
Yeah.
And so they're out there, they're like sharks. It's like,
They are.
and like I said, I don't know how they got my name, but I still get stuff every once in a while. They're out there.
Yeah, there's plenty of folks that there's no bottom to their depths. They'll go to get money or extract money from people, and to add to it further, in working with Bob Burke through the time I've been here, he's a guy that I think is a pretty hard sell on any deviations from what you would consider probably the norm, if you would. And having his buy-in where we're at, he is a huge signal of support. Yeah, he's good. So if he would have come back with we used to call in the military, the 32-2 suck. Then I might have gone, let's not go down this path, but that.
Yes, no, Mr. Burke definitely does not pull punches. with this.
No. So I mean, to me, that gives credence if he's saying, but I'm one of 11 here, so.
Yep.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay, I want to be conscious of time because we have to get up before.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comment right now? I mean, we have this that we scheduled. You have anything to speak to?
Yeah.
Now, there was a question about Tennessee. I can look and see, but I'm not aware of any litigation that's come up in Tennessee. I am aware that there was criticism from some veterans services organizations prior to that bill being passed, where they were not happy with it. But I'm not aware of any unintended consequences since then, but I haven't specifically looked. I could look and see if there's anything.
Are we gonna have time for more testimony? This is like a really important thing, and I just wanna make sure that we're like prohibiting these bad actors and not just regulating them, because if a lot of these entities have a lot of money and a lot of influence and a lot of lobbying power, I'm just gonna say it out loud, and they're smart about skirting around the laws and finding loopholes and creating them, and I wanna make sure that we are not allowing that to happen, period.
You just jumped into the next thing I was gonna say,
Okay,
was you have this scheduled for discussion and vote on Friday, so what we need to figure out is whether or not we're doing that. Because if we're not doing that this week, I'm gonna schedule something else with that slot.
Yeah.
So. What's the team think?
Everything on a no hurry.
He died.
Boy,
I'd rather get it right than rush
Yeah,
it.
100%.
Yeah.
I would like to hear.
Okay. Okay, that seems universal consensus. So that will, yes,
I also would like to hear my testimony, but also if we do end up moving forward with this, something for people to think about who are working on this bill is if we can move in this disclosure part, the part that says this service is available free of charge from these other places, that should be at the top of that disclosure and should be prominent. And the first thing that people see when they're looking at that disclosure. That would make me feel,
I think.
yeah, comfortable.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to take that from the morning schedule.
On Friday.
But that also, we had committee discussion and possible vote on H67, and we had only locked in 15 minutes for that, thinking that we were bringing in different language, but it seems since we're having a shift in that language, that we should allocate more time to that for that morning. Does that make sense?
Yes, regarding that, I believe we are already in the works. We're moving forward with that, so the language should be ready.
So do we not need the time on Thursday afternoon for H67 then? Because we were gonna try to squeeze it in before the floor.
Were we just squeezing in a vote or discussion?
No.
No, that was more work on it.
Oh, we can keep that then.
Keep that,
If we're
okay, then
gonna
keep that
squeeze,
then,
and
we'll
then we
just
can
put
vote,
103. And
Just
then
do five
we'll keep
lines.
that open for other moving parts, because there's gonna be no shortage of moving parts on Friday.
Mhm.
Let me just make sure this really works.
Thank you, council.
And that was at 2:45.
All right, you can take us off. We got 6 minutes before.
So here.